Have you heard of our Lord and Saviour Pax Dei? I still don't know if I'm saying that properly, but basically, new Sandbox MMO coming out, ex-developers of EVE Online, have all the pedigree, have all the money, no crowdfunding. They released a trailer, looks like they're going to be doing some testing fairly soon. And honestly, of all the MMOs upcoming, this one probably tickles my fancy more so than any of the others. They've released a couple of big Q&As. One of them was on the 18th and then another one like a day ago. I've not gone through them yet. They're talking about what's going to be in the game and I'm going to go through it. More MMO videos. That's what people asked for. So you asked for it, you better watch it or don't. It's okay. Can I build anywhere on the map? No, building happens in the Heartland valleys and is disallowed outside of them. As I understand, the Heartland valleys is basically the, safe area. That's where everyone's going to be doing the life skill stuff, the living, and basically where you can just chill, relax. And presumably that's where, when they were talking in the trailer, they're potentially going to have where you can log on your mobile and basically just do the chill shit, which I did say when they brought that up in the trailer originally. That's a really good idea. Albion has that. I don't know how many people play Albion like out in open world PvP and stuff on the mobile, but there's so much like tertiary content that it's an entire game in and of itself to just log on, go to your island, sit in town, do your crafting, things like that. So this is a really good idea. Opens up the possibility of having a load more players than what you otherwise would if you just had only PC gameplay. Additionally, some areas in the Heartlands that would break gameplay are restricted. For example, the Heartland features a pre-made road network and you cannot build on top of the roads. Makes sense. You cannot build underground either. So there is an underground, you're telling me. Cool. I like. However, we do allow building on water, and indeed, waterfront buildings look amazing. In some cases, this does allow for building a bridge. Interesting. Can I set up my plot on a dungeon entrance? No. Of course you can't. No, we want to guarantee that PvE areas should be accessible to all, are accessible to all, and it is unlikely that you will find a dungeon's entrance in the Heartlands. So they're not ruling out that there will be dungeons in Heartlands. They're just saying, for now, probably not going to be dungeon entrance, but they say unlikely, not guaranteed. Can I build in PvP areas, and if yes, in a permanent way? So this was originally where they were saying they don't want to go into details on PvP. It should be covered in a dedicated PvP FAQ. They do talk about PvP a little bit later, so just as a spoiler, because I know a lot of people are looking for details on the PvP. They've said it's going to be high stakes, just as a spoiler, because I know some people in my audience do love full loot or, more hardcore PvP, and they've used a different couple words like opt-in, and I do really want to know at this point, like, what is the PvP rule system going to be? Do I absolutely need a plot to build a house? Building only happens on plots, but the plots have a permission system that allows them to be shared between players. So yes, you will need a plot to build, but this doesn't necessarily mean it is your plot. If you have a group of friends and form a clan together, you can have multiple shared houses in multiple locations and work on those together. So this is a very Sandbox feature that should be really good, especially for people who haven't experienced it before, like the old Star Wars Galaxies. Mortal Online has this. It's a Sandbox staple, right? Get people together. This is our area. Let's all build together. Let's work together. Let's make our little village or whatever, our city, our town. Really cool. Adds a different element to a game compared to, say, a theme park, where basically you are living in this world together and you're doing stuff that changes the world around you, essentially. Always a good feeling. Can I take resources from abandoned structures? Yes, if a player tears down a plot, the items left behind will become available to other players. Cool. Hopefully that means if people go AFK, don't come back to the game for a while, that means their plot goes away, you can take all their shit and then claim their plot. If yes, does this mean that I could potentially claim a larger, more complex buildings with my plot? And if so, are they/can they be larger than you'd normally be allowed to build in your single plot size? So you can't claim the pre-made buildings, but you will be able to build extremely large buildings using the plot permission sharing inside clans. So this makes perfect sense. Clan means bigger amount of people, which means you will need bigger amounts of buildings and bigger buildings in general. Cool. What could be some reasons to visit other players' settlements? Could we get access to rare materials or recipes? Could we get access to their books or other discoveries? We don't want to go into specifics on this right now, but let's just say trading will be a large part of Pax Dei. There might also be additional reasons you want to visit other people, like politics. So if it's Sandbox, a lot of Sandbox games have local banking. What does local banking mean? It means that when you go to a bank, the contents of said bank is local to the area that you're in. So if there's town A, B, C, and D, you put stuff in town A's bank, then it's only going to be in town A's bank. You go to B, C, and D, and it's just not there. If you played New World, this had this. Some people don't like it. And I understand why from like a theme park perspective, because in theme park, you just want to go to an area, have access to all your stuff, and there's a reason why that's there. It's because in theme parks, you typically just want to jump in, do the stuff, and jump out. They're designed to be as frictionless as possible. Why is this an important system in Sandbox games? Well, because typically in Sandbox games, it's about resource access. And in a player-driven economy, if a certain area has abundance of resource A and another area has abundance of resource B, but doesn't have any of A, it means that being in one area gives you access to something that you can then trade to other areas, which gives that area a reason to have people inhabit and a reason for people to be there. And if you open up this idea, this concept, in an overall PvP sense, that means that controlling certain areas and controlling certain resources means that not only do you have something to trade that has value to other people who aren't in that area, but means you have a reason to fight over that area, and it gives the world in general meaning. It makes the entire world not fall out of favor, right? Because if you're in World of Warcraft, you're in Elwyn Forest, you're in Elwyn Forest until you finish leveling, and then you go to the next zone, and then the next zone, and there's almost no reason to go back. Whereas if there's resources specific to an area, which then has a local bank for the people that are in that area, it means that people always have to go there. You live there, so you go there. And if you want to trade with somebody, you have to move the stuff physically to another location, which means that it increases the value of said thing. This is typically how all Sandbox games work. Now, I'm not saying that they will have this. That could be totally an assumption on my part. But if it follows the blueprint of any Sandbox games that came before it, then that is my assumption going into it. And politics, of course, although people will probably just jump on Discord, and there'll probably be a public Discord server for all the people who want to partake in the politic. Plot and permissions. Can I build a house on someone else's plot? Yes, if they've given you permission. Can I block access to my plot to everyone to part of my clan? You cannot restrict access to your plot per se, but you can restrict who can access anything you build on the plot. Can anyone come to my plot and steal what's in my house? Can they destroy it? Only the players you've given permission to access your constructions on your plot can access your things. And yes, they can destroy it, but also help you build more. So I assume that second part pertains to the first part, and you'd have to give somebody permissions to destroy it. Because they've said that the Heartlands, like the safe area, is going to be devoid of PvP. Unless this relates to the PvP area, which we'll get to later, I guess. How does sharing permissions play out? We don't want to talk about this level of detail right now. We're aiming to make the system flexible, so you can do pretty much anything you want with the permissions. If you played any of these types of games, it'll probably be fairly simple. You have a menu, you can invite people to the permission list, and then you can basically go through and tick boxes of what they're allowed to do. Buildings, is there a mechanic that limits the number of structures that I can build? The amount of land available is the only constraint. Each player will get one plot of land and you can build on as part of a paid account, and we intend to add mechanisms that allow players to acquire additional plots. Hopefully not the cash shop. As an aside, note we've noticed during playtests that clans often appoint a player to be the master builder, so if you're really into building, try and find a guild that wants to make you this person. That's true. In every game like this I've ever played, there's always been one person who's been like just the building nerd. You'll also typically have like the crafting nerds as well, where they just do all that shit, and then you have the combat players, and then you'll have the PvPers, you'll have the PvEers. Are the houses pre-made, or can I build whatever I want? You can build almost whatever you want from the building pieces in the game. See the next answer. Ooh, baby. Can I go crazy in terms of structure, or do I need to respect some architectural rules? The building system features a physics system that forces structural integrity on the buildings, so your buildings will have to make sense from a structural perspective. Good. As an example, while houses can be pretty big, you cannot build a house that's indefinitely high. Makes complete sense. So I will just show you now, because they did release... Oh god, they did release a little bit of like teaser footage for the buildings. Like, man, I know every time I say graphically this game looks great, especially for an MMO, people just run in like, it's Unreal, it doesn't matter, don't be impressed by graphics. I don't give a fuck, man. The game looks cool. It is what it is. So... basically just walking around, fucking love the landscapes, the backdrops, game world looks great. Actually got animations for walking upstairs that change your character, level of detail, cool. And then you see here, character builder changing the building, adding the roof. So this is the level of detail you can expect from the building system in terms of creating houses. And as you can see here, lots of windows on this house. And this is building a different type, wooden. So it looks relatively easy to do. It looks relatively straightforward. If you played any survival games before, then this is not going to surprise you. We just typically don't get it in MMO. Oh man, got a little dock as well. Cool. And then they've got a nighttime version of this as well, so I'll just show you. We'll break up the reading of text a little bit. Just walking around looking at the house. There's Builder Caitlin. Been busy. I love that night as well in this game actually looks dark. Because man, nighttime serves almost no purpose tactically or even just like as a feeling in most MMOs. Like look how fucking dark the night is in this game. I know they're fading to black there, but man, it actually looks dark. That's going to be interesting in the PvP areas as long as they don't have like massive fucking neon glowing names over somebody's head, like level 70 John Dick Slayer over here, just glowing above his head. So let's continue. In the long term, will all buildings look more or less the same? We have multiple building piece sets and are looking to add more customization options to the houses. We'd love to eventually have a system that allows you to make a very diverse set of houses that can all look unique. We definitely won't have all these features done by the time the game goes to general availability and plan to keep adding features in the updates. Makes sense, yeah. It's something that if it's modular, they can just easily expand upon. When we go to build on our plots, how forgiving is the building system if we want to change our minds and start over completely? Or if we mess up, can we recoup supplies equally, or are they lost once placed? We're still debating exactly how much you'll recoup when tearing down the houses, but we do want the system to be fairly forgiving. Yeah, makes sense. Most games have like a 50% loss or something like that. So plot decay and plot move. If I link my plot to the plots of my clan, can we build a huge castle? What happens if someone decides to leave? Is a part of the castle lost? We're well aware of this and we want to develop mechanisms that allow you to retain that plot of land for the clan. So this makes sense. Everyone should understand if you join a clan, much like a company, Dark and Darker fans upset by this concept. If you join a clan and you're all part of the collective and you do stuff as part of the clan, like building a castle, then overall the clan's going to own the castle, right? It just makes sense. Can I decide to move my plot at any point? In that case, what happens to building/props already on it? Right now, you can move the plot at any time, but we would need to move all the things on the plot by carrying them from one place to another. We intend to offer tools to make this a bit easy, but don't have any ETA on this. So almost certainly then, this pretty much confirms that there's going to be local banking. And you'll probably also be able to use your house essentially as a bank as well. What if someone claims a plot in the area we started to populate with my clan to block us and doesn't want to move? Is there any way we can push them out or prevent this from happening? There is no game mechanism at this point to force somebody to move. You'd have to talk to the person and convince them to move. Good luck. Note that the game very much favors cooperation, so there's very little in the game itself that would motivate someone to do this. Someone who dedicates their plot to blocking a clan instead of working with them will have a hard time playing the game. I mean, this happens. This happens. If you got PvP in the area where this is happening, then the person's just going to be a dick. But if it is local banking and stuff like that, and they need stuff, and you just choose not to trade with them and just basically blackball them from doing anything, then they're probably not going to have a very good time if they have to be traveling really far away to get common stuff that you've probably traded due to being a big collective of people and having access to be able to like guard trade caravans or whatever to go to those areas, if that is indeed how the game works. How long does a player have to stay idle to lose their buildings, or what has to happen? We want the game shards to always feel alive. I love when developers use the term shards because that comes from UO all the way back in the day. And to ensure this, it doesn't make sense to keep inactive plots forever. Once a player stops playing the game, we therefore want to free the plot or plots of land the player has been maintaining so that other players can occupy the space. Yeah, of course. We're thinking about you literally have to do this in, I'd say, any game with limited availability of land. But the problem is that if it's like any other game I played like this, people will literally log on and maintain like a subscription or whatever. If the game is sub-based or whatever else, if it costs money, they will log on, purely to pay the taxes for their house and then log off and just not quit the game for like years because they're like, oh, I'll lose my house if I quit. Motherfucker, you quit years ago. People were doing this on Arcade and maintaining a monthly sub so they could pay for their house for a game they've not played in like 3 years. Yank the fucking cord out. So we're thinking about setting up a grace period so to make sure people don't lose their house by accident, along with ways to allow a returning player to easily rebuild a plot so they don't have to start from scratch. We haven't made final decisions around this yet and are looking forward to experiment on this during the alpha test. So it seems like the developers really do have a mind to make this as reasonably forgiving as possible in terms of all the features they've mentioned so far. PvP obviously is going to be one that drives people away from the game if it's not forgiving in terms of like when you're subjected to it. And obviously if you're building something, you make a mistake and it costs you a bunch of time, a lot of people don't like shit like that, so it makes sense to do things like this. Can I take resources from abandoned player structures? Yes, if they are truly abandoned. Cool. Housing and decorations. Can I craft furniture and decorative items? Yes, of course. There are a number of items you can build in addition to just buildings, crafters, and chests. For example, you can craft rugs, chairs, tables, etc. The selection of items in the game right now is not extensive as we haven't gone into full production on this content set, and we're looking to add more. Yeah, that's stuff that literally can come at any time. You don't need like 17 different chairs when the rest of the game needs to be made. You basically just get bare bones systems in there, get shit working, and then you just add this stuff later. It doesn't even need to be in for people to test the other systems. If you can do all the complex stuff already, like getting an MMO to run and getting like a open world fucking building houses in real time to work, adding in furniture to add into those houses is not a super big concern. Do they have value in the gameplay or are they just for decorative purposes? Some are usable, and we do want to support full role-playing gameplay where you can nicely decorate your house also with usable furniture. Lights are especially helpful. With the dark nights you'll experience in the game, I just commented on that on the video, they look dark, which is very interesting, especially in a PvP game. So we don't currently know how extensive this prop set will be by the time you get to play the game, but we will be continuing to develop the game for a very long time, including adding more content over time. Yeah, it's an MMO. Now, I do think a game like this, if they do it properly with like the houses and villages and stuff, will be an RPer's paradise. Because even with things like Final Fantasy XIV, with how you've seen people go hard on the housing in those games and they're, you know, mostly instanced, with having like a clan live together and like building these big areas with multiple houses or big castles or whatever, people love this shit, bro. People absolutely adore playing games like this. So if they nail this, like an actual game world that feels like a living, breathing experience and has meaning to be in there and people working together and things like that, the role players will love this, and I can't blame them because we've not seen a game like this in a real long time. Can I design my own ones, or are those preset? They will be provided by the game. Yeah, makes sense. Can I customize them to the colors of my clan? The systems have many features to customize the items you can craft, and we have the tech in place to enable features such as the type of wood used to craft an item changes the look of items made by the wood. We additionally have the system for clans to create their own heraldic symbol, which appears on some of the gear worn by the clan, and we are planning to support this in some items you can craft on your plot. We don't currently know the extent to which we'll support all of these features by the time the game comes out, so we'll share more details on this later. I like this. I like this as a general concept. Having all your people in like guild colors with like emblems on their gear, like going into battle together, whether it's fighting a boss or another group of players, man, that's just badass. It's just really badass. So part 2 FAQ follow-up. So this is the one that mentions PvP, I believe. So you mentioned plot several times. What is a plot exactly? Good question. A plot is a portion of land that belongs to a character and that you can claim in the areas open for building. This portion of land is circular and vast enough to build a house of reasonable size and a couple of smaller structures. When you're placing a plot, you'll be able to pretty freely pick the plot location in the Heartlands, and we'll see a preview of exactly what the area you're getting is like. So if you played any game like this, it's the same system. You played Arcade, Star Wars Galaxies, Mortal Online, they're all the same shit. Ultima Online. Basically, there'll be designated areas where you can build within, and where you can't, you'll pull up like the item or whatever that allows you to claim a plot, and it'll show you like green, this is good, you can place here, red, you can't place here. Real simple, right? So how big are the Heartlands we're building in? We're creating a separate content package about the world, and this will be covered in detail there. The Heartlands are pretty big, and there are many. How much can I build on a plot? We haven't yet determined how large the plots are, so it's impossible to answer this exactly. The balance we're looking for could be described as, quote, you can build quite a lot on your plot, but you will also want to work with your clan to use the combined land in your clan's plots as smartly as possible. There are no doors or signs in the video. The current game build doesn't have doors or signs, but yes, we want to have these as much as you do. So yeah, so they don't have doors or signs. Can I build on water? Yes, we currently allow the plots to overlap water and probably will want to have this be the case long term. As you saw in the video we posted, lakeside properties are pretty awesome, I agree. Big fan of fishing in video games, I don't know why, just think it's super relaxing to fish in video games. Put a Netflix series on, do some fishing. It's basically my favourite part of New World was just fishing. So in the current game build, you can place building foundation pieces underwater, as long as the bottom of the lake is close to the surface. So effectively, you can build on the shore with slight overlap with water, but you cannot build, let's say, a bridge over a lake. I can't build outside Heartlands, right? But what about PvP? Ooh, the big question, what about PvP? So you can't build outside of Heartlands in the current game version. Okay. So we want to have this eventually, but PvP building destruction that works in an MMO is highly challenging to have work in a way that creates a good gameplay experience, so we haven't made this yet. PvP boys rejoice, because this is making it sound like it's something they want to do. Basically, we're working towards having a solid core game at launch, and PvP building is planned for a game update. Having said that, we absolutely want to have high stakes PvP in the game launch version. It's just the stakes are not related to building. The reason not to have the houses you're building in Heartlands be part of PvP is that we want the base game to be enjoyable to even those who don't want to participate in PvP directly. We believe even the hardcore PvPers deserve a resting place in the world to regroup and gather forces in preparation for the next battle. This makes complete sense, and this is exactly the way I would do it if I was making a Sandbox MMO. I love the, like, no holds barred, you're thrown out into the world, you're thrust upon it, and people thrust upon you. But at the same time, I understand that you basically can't populate a game like that with casuals to the point you need to make the game healthy. Because Albion Online has proven you can convert casuals to, like, semi-hardcore PvPers, and then some of them into hardcore PvPers. And you can have content for every level, from the most Care Bear person to the most hardcore person. You just have to do it right. You just have to service everybody. And if you don't go to extremes and make it all Care Bear or all super hardcore, then you can have a really good game. You just have to do it properly. And the way that you do this properly is you have an area that everyone can just enjoy, and maybe there's hard PvE, there's building, there's, you know, working together, but then you have an area that you go to that has the rarer stuff, and in that area is where people be banging. There be bangers within that area, and this is how you satisfy everybody. You don't do a new world where you have toggle on PvP. You have PvP be optional by saying you have the option to remain in this area, that there's a lot of stuff to do and you can have a good time. But you also have the option that if you walk into this area, you are opening yourself up to get them fucking cheeks clapped. So you best be prepared, and then you can mentally prepare yourself. And if you don't want to do that, you're going to miss out on some stuff, but that's just life. And then for all the hardcore people, they can be there, they can do that stuff, and then when they want to chill, they can go to the other area. And then when there's building and stakes of building combat, basically like building castles in the open PvP area or whatever, you can have the hardcores spend most of their time there. And that can work really well. Now, is that how it's going to play out? Maybe. We'll have to wait and see, I guess. But I think that's what they're going for, at least reading between the lines here. Does the game have roads? How do these work? Yes, we have a pre-made road network. We'll cover in more detail later in the world posting later. The short of it is, roads are intended for traveling the world, and you can't build on the pre-made roads, yes. So there's a lot of question marks with this game, because we don't know how you go from the Heartlands to the PvP area. We don't know the significance and what the differences are, at least as far as I've seen. But I've been trying not to, like, basically consume all information about all games ever. But I know so little about what Pax Dei is doing that this is definitely something worth actually looking at. Are there access controls in the plots? So we have an access control system that's been integrated into the items. It will give you reasonably granular control over who can access things in your plot. We don't have a feature to restrict people from walking on your land, but you can build walls. So theoretically, your clan could wall up the village as people did in the Middle Ages. There you go. If you don't want any peeping toms coming about, you can just build some walls. Can I build on other players' plots? Yes, depending on who allows you to do so. We're expecting most clans will set up their plots so all clan members can build on all clan plots. So you can even have like a communal area where somebody sets up where you can build, where new people can come and build. And that just be a collective that isn't a clan, where it's just like everyone's an individual, you can come, you can hang out, we can all build here. There have been in sandbox games, even in the most hardcore sandbox games, where basically everyone comes together and says, oh, this town is basically like a free area where everyone can come trade. It's owned by like a neutral party that doesn't participate in politics or like the world server wars or whatever, and doesn't get involved in like fights or whatever. They'll generally hire like guards to guard the area, and they'll have like mercenary clans live in. This has happened in every sandbox game I've ever played. And that will just be the area where everyone knows once you're within the city perimeter, you're not fucking around, because if you do, they'll blacklist you and then you can't go to this area that's safe, stop off, do some trading, get access to some stuff that you need. So yeah, having this system, obviously this one's for the safe area. If they did this in the PvP area, you could have the same exact thing. What if a griefer builds a plot next to mine on my clan's plots? We kind of went over this one already. We have a couple of these questions, but they did go into a lot more detail. So we understand that players may encounter issues with the plot placement, and we want to ensure that our players have the ability to resolve these conflicts. Our team has extensive experiences working on multiple MMOs, true, and we are well versed in the challenges that players can face. True. These developers are the ones I would trust to get the sandbox elements this right, because they've worked on sandbox MMOs for decades. Can I modify the ground in the plot? We don't support this feature, but as said, you can build the foundations that allow you to flatten the land. So yes, I guess. No, I don't really understand. Is there a height capped how tall buildings I can make? Yes, but the structural integrity system will effectively block you from making buildings tall enough to hit the cap. We'd like to enable you to make large multi-story houses, but at the same time, we don't want the game to feature skyscrapers, so the tallest buildings will be somewhere around what you'd expect to see in the Middle Ages. Yeah, I mean, some of the castles were quite big vertically, not like crazy big, but makes sense, especially given the scale of the world. Like, that's reasonable, and obviously if you had a castle, it'd be considerably bigger than this on a hillside. All the building pieces in the video final. The video we posted doesn't show all the blocks we have in the game, and we're still iterating on exactly what blocks we have, so please assume anything you saw in the video is subject to change. Yeah, of course. Can I get more plots somehow? In the current game, each player has just one plot, but we'll eventually add ways in which you can get additional land. So these are the screenshots that they posted, much of what we've seen basically from the video. Man, the game does just look great. So it does look kind of like when you play a survival game, right? You've got multiple things outside for crafting that are probably going to have resources in them go in while you're, out doing other stuff. And I honestly think, I know a lot of people think sandbox MMOs are just like dead on arrival, and there's a few reasons for that. I'll constantly argue this point, and people always disagree with me, and I've never heard anyone make like an actual compelling argument as to why I'm wrong on this. The reason sandbox MMOs typically fail, and of course that's ignoring the fact that there's been multiple very successful sandbox MMOs, EVE Online, and Albion's one of the most popular MMOs on the planet right now, and that's a fully sandbox MMO. Usually the reason they fail is because they're made by people with no fucking resources at all, which means that they're always buggy, they're always content light, and that's putting it politely. And they always just have massive problems and delays, and shit just doesn't work. And on top of that, a lot of the time they're developed for a very niche hardcore audience. The ones that have succeeded have done sort of this middle ground. And even the most hardcore of games could be successful. There's so many people out there that enjoy experiences like that people just ignore. Because look at games like Escape from Tarkov, and then look at literally the entirety of survival genre. Pretty much all the popular survival games are you die, you lose your shit. Somebody comes over and they breaks your fucking building, they go and take your shit. If done well and the game's good enough, people love that. But obviously if you just meet in the middle and have like safe areas and PvP areas and something for everybody, that game can be absolutely massive. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because this looks just like a survival game. Like, it looks exactly how the layout of a survival game base would be. You've got all your crafting stuff going on back at home, like the auto stuff, like turning ores into ingots or whatever. You're going out doing other stuff. You come back, you drop your stuff off, you do a little bit of crafting, go AFK for a little bit, and then you go out with the boys and go do some stuff. Right? It looks exact. This is what this picture reminds me of. And that, but in a full MMO persistent world with clans fighting each other, people working together, trading, cross-map resources, stuff like that. I am massively into the idea of this. Of course I am. I played games like this since the late 90s. So I have big expectations for Pax Day. I know the vast majority of time people are like, oh, you know, maintain your expectations. I am. Of course I am, because I've not played the game. I'm not emotionally invested in it. But they're saying all the right things, and they're showing very highly promising images and videos. And they're not asking anybody for any money. And they're not that far away from having it playable in our hands. So this is all looking real good for me. And it's definitely something to keep on your radar if you are interested in this. And I don't know why you wouldn't be, because it's not going to be super hardcore. It's going to have those elements, and it's also going to have what it seems like a little bit of something for everybody. But yeah, there we go. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace out.